So thank you everyone who has joined. This is an activity that I did last year and which sometimes I do for our residents or student trainees here in Tulsa. It is, I'm going to share my screen. It's an activity that I just call the mindfulness poetry reflection, and you should be seeing my screen now. If you have never done one of these before, it's an experience where what we do together is we will consider a piece of poetry that I've selected, and we will do what's called a group reading. And a group reading is I'll read it through first, and anyone who would like to read it after me can just jump in and read it. So, so we'll hear two readings. And the reason we do that is that sometimes hearing a poem in more than one voice, we can really pick up better on what it's saying. And so we'll do what that's called a group reading. And so basically, what we'll do following that is I'll ask the group just to consider anything about the poem that really kind of stood out to them, you know, and we'll you know, maybe it's a turn of phrase or an image. And then we'll consider some reflection questions for a few minutes that you can journal on individually. And then we'll come together as a group and sort of share thoughts and ideas. Typically, these kind of activities take about 20 minutes. We might, if you'll give me the liberty, go over past 12:30 just a little bit since I was late joining you. So we'll just go over just a few minutes, I believe, but hopefully you can stay with it, and I hope you enjoy the activity. So any questions so far about what we'll be doing together? Okay. So what I'd like to do is actually touch base again. This is just sort of my orienting slide. So again, just to briefly review what we're going to do. We're going to do the group poetry reading, reflecting together on what stands out. We'll have some individual reflection questions that you'll consider. We'll do some group sharing, and then have a wrap up. So
Touchet, I think your slides disappeared from our screen because I see you.
Okay, let me stop sharing and I will reshare, and we'll see if it comes back. How is that?
Perfect. I see it now.
Very good. So there's my orienting slide here. I'm sorry, technology is being a little funny today. We must have had a solar flare or something. So anyway, now again, a group reading, just to very quickly review that with you again, is I will read the poem, and then just anyone that wants to, after I finish, jump in and read it a second time from start to finish. Does that make sense? Okay, we don't have to determine who will do that ahead of time. It's kind of makes it more interesting. All right, let's consider a poem. One of the things that I really like about poetry is that it doesn't have to directly, and I hope you can still see my screen. Poetry doesn't have to directly deal with issues around wellness or around work to be relevant. Sometimes themes stand out from poems that we can really relate to all of our life. And I happen to love this poet. This is one of my favorite poems. This is a poem by Mary Oliver. She tends to do a lot of poetry that has to do with nature and relating it to issues that can be quite relevant to our own wellness. So I will go ahead and read the poem. And remember, whoever wants to read it after me, please just go ahead and do that. So let's proceed with the poem reading. The summer day. Who made the world? Who made the swan and the black bear? Who made the grasshopper? This grasshopper, I mean. The one who has flung herself out of the grass. The one who is eating sugar out of my hand. Who is moving her jaws back and forth instead of up and down. Who is gazing around with her enormous and complicated eyes. Now she lifts her pale forearms and thoroughly washes her face. Now she snaps her wings open and floats away. I don't know exactly what a prayer is. I do know how to pay attention, how to fall down into the grass, how to kneel down in the grass, how to be idle and blessed, how to stroll through the fields, which is what I have been doing all day. Tell me, what else should I have done? Doesn't everything die at last and too soon? Tell me, what is it you plan to do with your one wild and precious life?
Okay. The summer day. Who made the world? Who made the swan and the black bear? Who made the grasshopper? This grasshopper, I mean. The one who has flung herself out of the grass. The one who is eating sugar out of my hand. Who is moving her jaws back and forth instead of up and down. Who is gazing around with her enormous and complicated eyes. Now she lifts her pale forearms and thoroughly washes her face. Now she snaps her wings open and floats away. I don't know exactly what a prayer is. I don't know how to pay attention, how to fall down into the grass, how to kneel down in the grass, how to be idle and blessed, how to stroll through the fields, which is what I have been doing all day. Tell me, what else should I have done? Doesn't everything die at last or too soon? Tell me, what is it you plan to do with your one wild and precious life?
Thank you. So I'd like to invite the group, just as we look at the poem, and we've heard it twice, is there anything that stands out to anyone? Maybe it's a turn of phrase, an image, anything at all that you'd like to comment on that you noticed that really stood out to you?
I think for me, it's the doesn't everything die at last and too soon? And tell me, what is it you plan to do with your one wild and precious life? And
Yeah.
relating that back to nature and then just current events in my life. It just all, I'm like, yeah,
You bet.
it's by fast.
Yeah, some powerful questions at the end there, right? Yeah. What else? Does anything else stand out to anyone that they'd like to comment on?
I think all the parts where she talks about how she knows how to kneel in the grass and stroll through the fields. And it seems like she knows how to really just be. Whereas I feel like I'm always racing to the next thing and I have a hard time just being present.
Thank you. Yeah, I can really relate to that. Yeah, thank you for sharing that. I think one thing that really stood out to me, if I could share for just a moment, is that phrase, knowing how to be idle and blessed, how to stroll through the fields, which is what I've been doing all day. Tell me, what else should I have done? And thinking, wow, I really like to explore that more rather than being rushed and pressed and harried all the time, It really stood out to me.
We have a comment in the chat. Samuel commented, the introspective look at self after paying attention to the details of the grasshopper is interesting.
Thank you. Thank you so much for monitoring the chat. I had forgot to look at that. And you're welcome to add any comments you'd like to the chat. There's also a comment that says, I like all the questions thrown around. Who made these things like the world? Yeah, lots of questions in this poem. You bet. Wonderful. Thank you all so much for those considerations and for sharing those. Why don't we move to our individual reflections then? I hope you can see my screen. It should say individual reflection at the top. And what I've offered you here are 3 questions to consider. Now, you can, I'll invite you in just a moment to reflect on these individually, and you might just write down your answers to any of these questions you'd like to answer for yourself, or you may have other questions that have come up that you'd rather consider instead. This is truly invitational, so you don't have to fill them out. There won't be a quiz, and I won't ask everyone to march around the room and tell me what they shared. But this is really for your edification, and it's invitational. So the questions are, as you can see, and thank you, Wendy, for your comment about that you added to the chat, the line about into the grass. Thank you. The questions are, where do you find time for quiet and ease in your busy life? How do you experience a connection to a greater whole to a meaningful spirituality? And then how does that connection inform how you choose to work and to live? So let's just take a few moments here, a few minutes, just to individually reflect on that, and invite you to journal on those, write them down, and then I'll invite us back in just a few minutes rather. So just maybe a minute more. So let me invite everyone to kind of come back together. And what I will do is page down. And let's talk about group sharing before we do that. Just a few ground rules. These kind of poems and the questions can often evoke very personal reflections. And so sharing for that reason is invitational. What that means is that, really only what you feel comfortable sharing. You don't have to share anything if you don't want to. Let's remember to respect each other's thoughts and feelings. Here's something I learned from Parker Palmer and some of his work, and also in some of my experiences in a type of group experience called clearness committees, which I'd be happy to describe to you at some other time. And that is a very helpful rule called no saving, correcting, or setting others straight. We want to hear what folks have shared from their own inner wisdom, from their own inner experience, without the need to correct or comment on or set others straight. And then finally, allow yourselves to learn from and be supported by others as they share their reflections. So what I'd like to do is just sort of invite our group to just sort of share thoughts that you might have gleaned from your reflections, but also you can still even reflect on the poem if you like. And as this might relate to our own wellness, and what it says to us about what we need, perhaps about what we're already doing that we need to continue, or maybe some new directions we need to head in. So let me go ahead and just open up, and anyone that feels comfortable. I have a mentor that likes to say, share what wants to be shared.
Can you go back a slide for me? I didn't write the exact questions down. I wrote my answers, and I realized
Sure. Let me see if I can
beneficial for me.
back it up. It's group sharing. Let's go up to individual reflection.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I can just leave that on here. I can leave this slide up. If anyone would like me at some point to go back to the poem, we can certainly do that too.
I'll go ahead and share. Sometimes it's easier when one person starts sharing for others to hop in.
Yeah, thank you.
So for the first one, I'm honestly searching for a new outlet for my quiet time and ease in my busy life. I'm in a new season, but I tend to find it in my books and when I'm driving to and from work. So it looks a little different for me, and this kind of made me reflect with it being my birthday today. I was like, oh, I really don't have, I've kind of put that to the side. So thank you for this question that made me sit here and think about it. And then question 2, I find purpose in my community involvement at OU, and then outside of work, I do a lot of volunteering, and I really just enjoy loving on others and making that connection. And that's kind of what keeps me grounded. And finally, all of this does connect in wellness, as I help run Live Well OU, is I truly believe in making those genuine connections and making sure you're living your best life and that your well-being is reading that greater purpose, and that you're reaching your goals. And that includes me as well. But I think it flows into both of those, because I do believe in community and loving others the best I can.
Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing that. Really appreciate that. I was thinking about, I can share as well to kind of get things going. I have to be honest with the group. I really struggle with question 1, with the actions inherent in question 1, finding quiet and ease. I'm apparently, I'm much more comfortable on a crazy treadmill or hamster wheel, I'd like to say, where I'm just sort of going. And I'm finding that that's not the best thing for my sense of well-being. I struggle with that, and it seems what I need is to be more intentional about it and to discover those ways that I can introduce more spaciousness into my life. It often ends up feeling too crowded, and so anyway, just some thoughts from my side. It looks like we do have some input, and am I saying your name right, Chioma? Comments for the first question. Oh, wow. Yeah, let me see if I says, for the first question, I take walks and get in my closet sometimes for quiet times and reflecting. Thank you so much for sharing that. Those sound like wonderful ideas to get away. Samuel made a comment here that I'll read. I moved here recently this year, and I tend to find my enjoyment in the company of others. So I'm still in the process of trying to readjust to being alone and refinding enjoyment with myself as I try to make new friends. With that said, the ride home and the times I'm reading, be it a book or through Audible, allow me to kind of get out of my mind and enjoy not thinking. Thank you, Samuel. Lovely ideas. Chioma comments on question 2. I'm a Christian and my Bible does it for me. Yes, you got it right. Thank you. Many folks find so much comfort and meaning and spaciousness in their faith and in their community of faith. Kyle shares, my back porch looks out over a beautiful wooded area. I love to sit out there, listen to nature, and watch the constant movement. Butterflies, hummingbirds, cicadas, and squirrels are all interacting and living around me. I feel that even though nature all around me is moving constantly and is busy in itself, it is so peaceful and allows me to finally sit still and appreciate it all. Lovely. Thank you for sharing that. And Leah, thank you for what you shared. Looks like we've had a number of lovely comments coming in. Michael, question 3 really strikes me. I do find quiet and ease making frequent time for meditation or relaxing to music. But question 3 really makes me think how little my answers to questions 1 and 2 influence my day-to-day life. I'm mostly just keeping up with all my tasks for work and family. Hey, I hear you, Michael. I can relate to that. You're not alone, I think. Leah shares, we often observe the natural world, but don't perceive ourselves as part of it. We should take time to reflect on our connection to nature and find a place where we are as free and natural as the grasshopper. That's lovely and poetic, Leah. Thank you so much. It reminds me of the poem and how I think Mary Oliver places us within nature. You know, I love that. Thank you. Yeah, agree, Kaylee. That was really special. And Wendy shares, my quiet time is my driving to work with 35 minutes. I use the time for prayer in the AM and reflection going home. Thank you for sharing that, Wendy. That sounds like a lovely use of that time. Any other thoughts anyone might have, please feel free to share them either in the chat or just verbally if you like.
My quiet time is listening to music, being able to just drown out all the outside noises and world and just kind of reflect within my own mind.
Thank you. That's so nice to hear, Samantha. Thanks for sharing that. One other thing that I have found too introduces some quiet is when I go to yoga. And there are just moments where I feel like it is that sort of centering and listening to my own breathing that really seems to bring me a measure of peace. So I'm grateful for that too. All right. So I want to make room for any other comments there might be or any other shares.
I do find, like you said, whenever you go onto your mat for yoga and you notice the conversations that you're having with yourself are quite amazing. And it's that reflection of, and then, like you said, your breath brings you back to your mind, your body, the essence that lives within.
You are
And
so
so
right.
sometimes if you become aware of it, sometimes you can settle back into your practice, come back into the room, back into the body instead of at Walmart, Target, or wherever it is that you're instead of on your mat. And then once you finish, and then, like I said, you get to see who shows up on your mat is who shows up in life. And then you can kind of come back to or redirect, or maybe you don't want to, you just kind of follow that rabbit trail and see where it goes. Or so, and then to connect, like whenever you go, I find like grounding or going back into nature is very, like there's something about nature, the trees, the just kind of, I guess, everything functioning as one and just being present in that space is very powerful if you take the moment to stop and just listen
You bet.
to all that is around you.
Tiffany, thank you so much for sharing that. I think we hear some of that echoed in Michael's comment about how your mind can be so quieted, you know, when you're at the end of a yoga class, and how active it can be too. You know, I really like that you pointed that out. Joma shares again her thoughts that question 3 is intertwined with number 2, the answer for question number 2. Tons of instructions and guidelines that I try to adopt, and this helps me a lot on how to choose to work and live my life. Thank you, Joma. There's a lot of help out there. So, well, I'm looking at our time, and I do want to respect your time. We are at about 12:32. It has been lovely to spend this time with you. And I just wanted to say thanks to everyone for considering the poem with me. And for sharing your thoughts and your experiences and your wisdom. This is really a lovely way to come together and learn from each other, to be heard as well, and to explore ways to expand peace, contentment, and wellness in our lives. So thank you. I just wanted to share my gratitude with you, and I hope you all, we'll go ahead and wrap up now, but I hope you all have a lovely rest of your day.